Happy Thanksgiving, St. John's. So I got up this morning early to start making Thanksgiving dinner, and the first thing I went to was to make the pumpkin pie. And like many of you, I just make the pumpkin pie recipe that's on the can, the Libby's pumpkin pie can. And I noticed this year that they had two recipes. The first one said famous pumpkin pie, and then there was one that said new fashioned pumpkin pie. Well, I was very concerned about this because why would you mess with something that's already perfect? And I thought, those Libby's people are pretty shrewd, though. They changed the recipe, but they put the old one up, too, because there's diehards who will not accept any change with their Thanksgiving pumpkin pie. I chose to go with the famous pumpkin pie. I didn't do the new one, principally because it called for sweetened condensed milk, and I didn't have any sweetened condensed milk. And I recognize this pattern, though, and I think if you're an Episcopalian, you would recognize what they did as well. Had the Episcopalians written the titles for these pumpkin pie recipes, it would have been Pumpkin Pie Rite 1 and Pumpkin Pie Rite 2, right? Because when the new prayer book came out in 1979, they knew there'd be a lot of people who were up in arms that things had changed from the 1928 prayer book, so they kept a lot of the same prayers from 1928 and called it Rite 1, and the new 1979 prayers for Rite 2, and in 1979 there were a lot of people who used Rite 1, but nowadays in the church, almost everyone just uses Rite 2. Rite 1 lingered on as long as it needed to, and Rite 2 came into the fore. And I recognize there's wisdom in this. Of course, we want our traditions, we want things to be as they've always been. But things aren't as they've always been, and if we're going to continue to live and to flourish, we do need to adapt. And it's all right sometimes for those adaptations to happen slowly, maybe even a little begrudgingly. But if we're going to grow as individuals, as a church, as a society, we need to keep growing and changing. And this year for Thanksgiving, we feel that especially. The heart of this meal has always been one of gathering. But now, in a spirit of gratitude for the life God has given us, we need to not gather, or at least to gather in much smaller numbers. We need this new-fashioned pumpkin pie. But of course what we'll find is for those who have eyes to see and spirits to be attentive, the new will be good. And so I pray for all of us who are having diminished Thanksgivings, that there may be a spaciousness in it to say, I love my family, I love my friends, I love my neighbors, and in gratitude for them, I spend this day alone. And I pray for all of us that when we go to bed tonight, it will not have been alone. That as we've chosen solitude, we would know more fully the bond of love between us, which is God. A God who is in me, who is in you, binding us all together, and the paradox of isolation and union. And I do wish you the happiest of Thanksgivings. And I share with our prayers tonight those written this year by Diana Butler Bass for Thanksgiving. Let us pray. God, there are days when we do not feel grateful, when we are anxious or angry, when we feel alone, when we do not understand what is happening in the world or with our neighbors, when the news is bleak, confusing. God, we struggle to feel grateful. But this Thanksgiving, we choose gratitude. We choose to accept life as a gift from you, and as a gift from the unfolding work of all creation. We choose to be grateful for the earth from which our food comes, for the water that gives life, and for the air we breathe. We choose to thank our ancestors who came before us, grateful for their stories and struggles, and we receive their wisdom as a continuing gift for today. We choose to see our families and friends with new eyes, appreciating and accepting them for who they are. We are thankful for our homes, whether humble or grand. We will be grateful for our neighbors, no matter how they voted, whatever our differences, or how much we feel hurt or misunderstood by them. We choose to see the whole planet as our shared commons, the stage of the future of humankind and all creation. God, this Thanksgiving we do not give thanks, we choose it. We will make this choice of thanks with courageous hearts, knowing that it is humbling to say thank you. We choose to see your sacred generosity, aware that we live in an infinite circle of gratitude, that we all are guests at a hospitable table around which gifts are passed and received. We will not let anything opposed to love take over this table. Instead, we embrace grace, free and unmerited love, the giftedness of life everywhere. In this choosing and in this making, we will pass gratitude on to the world. Thus, with you and with all those gathered at this table, we pledge to make thanks. We ask you to strengthen us in this resolve, here, now, and into the future, around our family table, around the table of our nation, around the table of the earth. We choose thanks. Amen. Good night, Gig Harbor.